Hey art nerds! So today we are going to put the St. Petersburg White Nights watercolors to the Natto Soup Studio field test. So keep watching to see how this piece develops. Alright, so this illustration was sketched digitally, transferred to watercolor paper using graphite transfer, then inked with the Sakura Pigma Professional FB on fluid 100 cotton rag paper. This is block bound cotton rag paper, so it's going to hold it nice and tight while I paint. You guys might remember my unboxing swatch for the St. Petersburg White Nights. I also compare them to Yarka St. Petersburg watercolor paints. They are actually the same company and they have been rebranded. So this is the rebrand version, but I do have videos on the original Yarka St. Petersburg if you're interested in that. And I even compare them to the Yarka student watercolors. So make sure you check those videos out. So today we're going to be painting this beautiful winter forest fawn using these beautiful winter watercolors. I am going to do this watercolor in time-lapse and then check in with you guys at the end with my notes and my thoughts on how these whole pan watercolors handle, how they work on the Fluid 100 watercolor paper. All right, art nerds, I think I am just about finished with this piece. I don't know if you guys could notice it through the time lapse, but I was really struggling with it. And we'll talk about that after we discuss what we're here to discuss, the White Nights watercolors. So, colors mixed fairly easily, although the ultramarine fell out of solution with the burnt sienna, making for a patchy Payne's gray. There is a Payne's gray in the set. I opted to use a self-mixed Payne's gray because I did want some color variation in the sky. There's no violet, so mixing shadow colors is a little bit trickier than normal. There is, as I said, a Payne's gray, which can be used to make shadow colors. You can also make a really nice violet with the ultramarine and the alizarin crimson. Is that actually, no, it's just carmine, I'm sorry. Although the colors themselves are pretty nice, I feel like what I painted might kind of turn to mud because everything in here has the same level of contrast. And the raw sienna we used on her skin/fur was a little bit too saturated. Without a cool blue in this set, we have a cerulean and we have an ultramarine, but without a cool blue in this set, it's more difficult to mix foliage, so like the trees in the background. And the inclusion of both a raw sienna and a burnt sienna means we have two very similar colors, as you can see right here, in kind of a limited palette. A yellow ochre, in my opinion, would have been more useful. The colors themselves are a bit opaque and granulating. It could be the pigments they've used, it could be how they're milled, it could be the binder. Without further testing and without further information, I don't necessarily know. These don't seem like the sort of paints that would use optical brighteners, and you can kind of tell because the mass tone for some of these is very dark. Although with some of the yellows and the reds, the mass tone is very intense. So maybe some colors are using optical brighteners. With a bit of gentle persuasion, colors mix and lift a bit. You guys really saw that when I was kind of lifting up some of the skin and lifting up some of the lips. It wasn't overly so. They weren't overly prone to lifting. You saw I was able to do some glazing on her sleeves and on the dress. Glazing over her skin tone with a light blue, and then with a Payne's gray, and then with a darker blue, as well as a little bit of green from the tree. I could lift some of the ultramarine from her dress, but it didn't lift all the way back to white or leave a harsh mark. So in terms of being able to lift these colors, I really like it because they're a little bit more controlled than some of the other watercolors I've reviewed. What I don't like about this piece were I really struggled with the trees because we don't have that cool blue. I used the Payne's gray, and that actually kind of worked in my favor. But normally I would not naturally think to mix a Payne's gray. I also mixed a really nice sort of teal blue-green color that I used to shade the trees using the Viridian green, the ultramarine, and a little bit of the carmine. And I felt like the fact that her skin tone is so saturated and bright, it really doesn't feel like she's running through a dark forest. It doesn't have the impact I wanted. So I would kind of like to repaint this piece at another time if I have time. This is a fine piece, but it's really not what I had in mind. So I hate to give a cop-out answer, but I feel like I can't give a conclusive opinion on the White Nights paint based on this piece. I didn't really use the yellow or the orange or the cadmium red light, nor did I use the cerulean, and I didn't really use the sap green either. So I used about half of this palette for this piece. It seems to work fine on Fluid 100, but I think if you used a paper that had more tooth like Blick Premier or Kilimanjaro or Arches, you might enjoy these paints better. So I'm going to probably revisit this set at another time on a toothier paper and see if my opinion has changed. I will forever remember I used to hate Daler Rowney and Langton Prestige until I used it with Da Vinci paints, and then I fell in love. So there's really something about finding the right paper for the right paints. And given what other artists think of the White Nights, I think it's worth my time to go back and revisit it with another piece. So I hope you guys will look forward to that. I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, for helping me paint this. I hope you enjoyed watching the process. If you're looking for watercolor tutorials, I do have those on this channel. And if you guys let me know in the comments that you would like the revisited video, the redemption video to be a tutorial, I'm more than happy to do that. I've kind of pulled away from tutorials in general because I've gotten a few complaints, not a lot of complaints, but they're complaints from people who matter to me, so I take them very seriously. I've gotten complaints that my videos are kind of too long, so I've tried to experiment with finding ways to kind of shorten them up. So I'm just doing a few little corrections that really shouldn't matter much because it doesn't really affect my opinion of these. So thank you guys so much again for hanging out with me. I hope to see you guys again really soon. If you have different experiences with the White Nights, send me a link in the comments. Let me know. I want to see how you handled them, and I want to see what your result looked like. Inspire me. And if you would like my next video when I revisit these to be a tutorial, let me know that as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you again really soon. Bye guys!